The pound's next big crash. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is Felix. Today we are going to talk about a question that many people in the United Kingdom are quietly asking, but few truly understand. Is the British pound heading for another big crash? We all remember the headlines from 2022 when the pound almost collapsed after the government's mini-budget sent financial markets into chaos. Sterling fell to its lowest level against the United States dollar in modern history. Pension funds were at risk, mortgage rates spiked, and the Bank of England had to step in to stop a complete meltdown. Now here we are in 2025. Inflation is still high compared to other countries. The Bank of England is juggling debt and interest rates, and the government is borrowing at record levels. Meanwhile, global investors are asking, can we still trust the pound? Or is another crash on the horizon? In this video, I am going to break down exactly what is happening with the pound, why it is vulnerable, and what it would mean for you and me if the next crash actually happens. A quick history of the pound's crises. The pound is one of the oldest currencies in the world. It has been a symbol of British power for centuries, but it has not always been strong. In 1992, the pound was forced out of the European exchange rate mechanism during what became known as Black Wednesday. Billionaire investor George Soros famously bet against the pound and made more than $1 billion United States dollars in profit. In 2008, during the global financial crisis, the pound lost almost one-third of its value against the euro and the dollar in less than a year. In 2016, after the Brexit referendum, the pound dropped sharply and has never fully recovered to its pre-Brexit levels. And of course, in 2022, the mini-budget crisis pushed the pound briefly toward parity with the dollar, something that once seemed unthinkable. What this history shows us is that the pound is not immune to crashes. Whenever the economy, politics, or debt markets get shaky, the pound tends to take the hit first. Where the pound stands today. So what is the situation now in late 2025? The pound currently trades around £1.35 United States dollars. That is stronger than during the 2022 crisis, but weaker compared to pre-Brexit days when the pound was worth nearly £1.70 United States dollars. Inflation is running at around 3.8% year-on-year, which is higher than in the Eurozone and higher than in the United States. This means British households are still feeling squeezed by higher prices. The Bank of England's base interest rate is 4%. That is down slightly from the peaks of more than 5%, but still high enough to put pressure on mortgages and businesses. Government borrowing is at record levels. Debt interest alone is consuming a huge portion of the national budget. And the trade deficit, the gap between what the United Kingdom imports and what it exports, remains wide. All of these factors combine to create stress for the pound. Why the pound is at risk? Now let us dive into the key reasons why many analysts believe the pound could face another major crash. 1. The debt mountain. The United Kingdom's public debt is now well above £2.5 trillion. With higher interest rates, the cost of servicing this debt is climbing rapidly. Investors who buy British government bonds, known as gilts, are starting to ask tough questions. They want to know, can the government keep paying, or will it eventually resort to printing more money? If confidence in government debt weakens, investors may dump gilts, which pushes yields higher and weakens the pound. 2. Stubborn inflation. Even as inflation has come down from double digits, it remains higher than most other advanced economies. High inflation erodes the value of the pound in real terms. If the United Kingdom cannot bring inflation under control, the currency loses credibility. 3. Weak growth. Economic growth in the United Kingdom is stagnant, hovering around 1%. A weak economy makes the pound less attractive to global investors because it signals lower returns and weaker demand. 4. Dependence on imports. The United Kingdom imports a huge amount of energy, food, and goods. When the pound falls, everything imported becomes more expensive. That worsens inflation, which in turn creates a vicious circle of currency weakness and higher prices. 5. Political instability. Political decisions can trigger sudden market panics. The mini-budget in 2022 is the perfect example. If future governments announce unfunded spending or tax cuts, investors could once again punish the pound overnight. The warning signs to watch! So, what should we keep an eye on to know if the pound is heading for trouble? 1. Bond yields. If 10-year gilt yields suddenly surge above 5%, that is a sign that investors are losing trust. 2. Inflation data. If inflation stalls above 3% for too long, markets will question whether the Bank of England has control. 3. Sterling versus the dollar. A sharp fall below £1.20 to the dollar could signal that global investors are fleeing the currency. 4. Government borrowing announcements. Big spending plans without credible funding could trigger another panic. What a pound crash would mean for ordinary people. This is where it gets real. If the pound crashes again, how would it affect you? Imported goods, food, fuel, and electronics would all become more expensive almost overnight. Energy bills. Since the United Kingdom imports a lot of energy, a weak pound would mean higher energy costs. Mortgages. If the pound weakens, the Bank of England may be forced to raise interest rates again, pushing up mortgage payments. Savings. Inflation eats into savings faster if the pound loses value. Travel. Holidays abroad would become more expensive as your pounds buy fewer dollars or euros. In short, a pound crash makes life more expensive for nearly everyone. Could the pound recover? Now, it is not all doom and gloom. The pound has always had the ability to bounce back. After the 1992 crisis, the economy eventually recovered strongly. After Brexit, businesses adjusted to new realities. Even after the 2022 mini-budget disaster, the pound regained some ground once stability returned. What the pound needs to recover are three things. 1. Credible government policies that reassure investors. 2. Lower inflation that restores confidence in the currency's value. 3. Steadier growth that makes the United Kingdom attractive for investment. Global context. We also need to remember that the pound does not exist in a vacuum. The United States dollar is still the world's reserve currency. When global investors get scared, they run to the dollar. That means the pound often falls simply because the dollar is rising. At the same time, new challenges are emerging from the BRICS countries, which are trying to create alternatives to the dollar and the euro. If the global financial system shifts, the pound may lose even more relevance. How to protect yourself? So what can ordinary people do to prepare for a possible crash in the pound? Diversify savings. Do not keep all your wealth in cash. Use tax-free accounts, invest in a mix of assets, and consider some exposure to foreign currencies. Reduce high-interest debt. Credit cards and loans will become more painful if rates rise. Pay them down now. Plan for higher bills, budget for food and energy costs that could rise if the pound falls. Think global. If you have the ability, consider earning or investing part of your income in stronger currencies. Stay informed. Do not wait for the headlines after the crash. Follow inflation data, bond markets, and government announcements. Conclusion: the British pound has a long history of ups and downs. Right now, in 2025, the risks are once again building. High debt, sticky inflation, weak growth, and global uncertainty are all putting pressure on sterling. Will there be another big crash? No one can say for certain. But the warning signs are flashing, and the consequences would be real for everyone in the United Kingdom. Higher prices, higher mortgage payments, and a weaker standard of living. The best defense is knowledge. By understanding the risks, preparing your finances, and staying alert, you can survive the turmoil and even find opportunities in the chaos. So keep watching, keep learning, and keep asking the tough questions, because the pound's next big crash, if and when it comes, will not just be a headline. It will be a turning point for all of us. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, share it with friends and family, and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden risks shaping our financial future. And in the comments, let me know. Do you believe the pound will crash again? Or do you think it will recover stronger than ever? This is Felix. See you next time.